Welcome to another spring edition of the Bobcast. We will begin with track and field with head coach Dale Louie, and men's track on fire here in this outdoor season. Another win at the Mason-Dixon Invitational hosted by Gettysburg. Women's track also taking third at that same meet. Coach, we'll start here. How are the conditions, the competition, and then how did your team perform over the weekend?
Conditions were pretty decent. It did not rain on us. We were all fearing that. It got its way out of its system in the morning there. Very windy. So that really did have an impact on a number of performances. Whether you're talking long jumping into the wind or running into the wind or throwing a javelin into the wind, it seems like everything was into the wind. But that's somewhat typical at Gettysburg. So some of our athletes have become a little bit accustomed to it, and consequently, I think for some of the veterans, it doesn't. They still want to get great performances, but they recognize that sometimes, conditions are going to get in the way of that. So, next best thing is how high can you place?
Mm-hmm. How did your teams fare over the weekend?
Pretty well. We on the men's side, we continue to demonstrate some of the depth we have in a number of different events. The last two weekends, although we've won on the men's side, we really haven't had what I think any of us would say would be a great meet. We had some areas that we really actually didn't do very well in. We can certainly improve in those areas. But, again, the depth of the team and the fact that we have event coverage, that's one of the things we talked about earlier in the year. And, this team is pretty strong in that, that particular area there. The women are coming along. We had some really good performances out there in the throws. I'm sure you'll ask me about that, so
Yep.
I'll hold off on that. But we had some in the hammer in particular, some great performances out there, and some of the other women are continuing to get better. We have a lot of women who are learning some new events, and so technique takes a while, and that's a little frustrating. But I felt like we made some progress in that area there as well.
Track and field is viewed as an individual sport in the events themselves, for the most part, excluding the relays. But the championships and meets themselves are scored in a team setting. Is there extra motivation or pride that comes with winning a meet as a team? I know you may not be as concerned with the points, or it's hard to track the points as you're running around, but is that something that your athletes really take into account and make an effort for?
Yeah, a lot of our meets are not scored, so sometimes it doesn't become a factor. But the ones that are people definitely do pay attention to that, men and women. And the guys, of course, the last 2 weeks, as was also true with the conference indoor championships, well aware of the fact that we're up in that upper group, and if there are so many different events in track and field that. A lot of times if you can get it rolling early on, that the rest of the team starts feeding off of that. And, you walk around as a coach and you hear them talking about, hey, we're in such and such a place. And, we got to the last running event there Saturday, the 4x4. And the guys were well aware of the fact that we probably had enough points that we didn't have to win the 4x4 to win the meet. But that conversation prior to that had been, if we want to win this meet, we may need to win this 4x4. So there is motivation then throughout the meet.
We talk about this in swimming a little bit too. Are there more ways to contribute in a track meet than just by winning first place? And how is that really applied to your team in terms of finding ways to score?
Sure, it definitely does. Brian there in swimming, I'm sure, preaches just as we do that honestly, I don't know how many they score in swimming and stuff, but for us, we're oftentimes at meets where you're scoring at least 6, a lot of times scoring down into 8th place. And so you cannot win the event, which gains 10 points in our sport. And if you get a second and a third, you've outscored that other team. That's perhaps if they only get first place. So we preach that. We preach the idea of making it into the finals. Like in the throws, if they're scoring 8, they typically will take 9. So that ninth place person isn't getting any points for your team, but if you're in the finals, that means there's
You've got a
throwers
chance.
from another school that do not have any chance to place at all. And so we really preach that, even that ninth place, A gives you in our team a chance to move up, but it's also knocking those other teams out of a chance to move up or to score some points. So, what you're talking about there then is in the field events there, the throwing and most of the jumps, you're talking about, you're saying to people, hey, get in the top 9 because you can affect the scoring. Get in the top 9. Cross country is a little bit the same thing. I had a championship team once that during the course of the year we won first place twice, but we were undefeated in league competition because the other team might take 1, and then what we did that year is we just hammered. We would take 7 out of the next 10 places and stuff like that. So that's great for team spirit, because people recognize that, hey, I'm part of this. I'm not, the beauty of our sport too is nobody's sitting on the bench. That's a lot of pressure too.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people can sit on a bench and be real happy about being part of a championship team, and more power to them. They should be. They're part of that team and everything. In our sport, nobody's on the bench. The pressure's on.
I want to hit on, you have the throwing group scoring points, the relay scoring, the distance wins, 3 long jumpers in the top 5. What was the highlight for you in this meet on the men's side?
Wow, that's the. I think one of the highlights was, Braxton Clark. I thought ran a very nice 10K. We don't race our people in the 10,000 meters very much because it's a tough event on the track. So this was Braxton's first time out there this year, and he looked really, really good, really smooth. Looks like Coach Black is getting him geared up for the conference meet. And that distance group in particular, is really coming along pretty nice. So that definitely would be, I think one of the the highlights there. Over there in the Jav, James Nail was leading the competition most of the way, but really struggling. We thrown off grass in the mud, and then the wind was really blowing and everything. And it came down to his last throw and put a really, really good throw out there, over 53 meters. And I don't know where he's at this morning, but I checked last night, and he's I'm going to put the pressure on him a little bit. He's right there as far as going to nationals in the javelin.
In the conversation, hopefully some good conditions moving forward. I do want to pivot to the women's side. You mentioned the throwers, Kirsten Tawney, a new school record in the hammer throw, Holly Van Wee winning the discus. Those two have been good all year. Cassandra Vogel chips in second place in the javelin. You've really, with those 3, kind of come along on the throwing side and the women's side. What can you say about that group and just the record-setting performances this year, especially in the hammer throw?
Sure. Yeah, our hammers really come along, and Kirsten got ahead there of Holly and got that new school record, as you mentioned. Holly had a good day throwing as well. So we had really 2 women there throwing extremely well in that hammer. And that's been their cup of tea for most of the year there. And hopefully we can, keep that going. And we need those points from our women in the throws. Again, I don't know that they're satisfied with where they're at. I think, they want to continue to get better, and they work hard at it. And again, hopefully that feeds off, off of each other. And I'm hoping that, the rest of the women's team starts to feed off of some of those points there that, that those throwers are bringing in for us.
Women's track, we've talked about this all year from cross country on. A little bit thinner than the men's side, but you got contributions from Estrada, Reason Smith, Tremblay in the events that they're good in. You put together a second place 4x100 relay. Is this women's team, do you feel it kind of turning a corner a little bit, getting healthier, starting to put it together here as we get towards the end of the season?
Well, we better be putting it together.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. As you know, we've just had some really long-lasting, injuries and other health complications on this women's team this year, and it's kind of a shame because there's a little bit of talent there, and it's been a struggle for them. And then just as we talked earlier about feeding off of each other point-wise, these women are really. I got to give them a lot of credit. They keep coming back every week and trying to get healthy and trying to get better. And you're right. We're starting to inch forward there a little bit. We made some progress in that 4x1 relay this weekend. I think we continue to get better there. We've got Amy Tremblay, who's become a nice contributor there in the jumps area. She conceivably can help us out getting some points outdoors that we didn't have indoors. So we're hopeful. I think again our women's team is more of an outdoor team than an indoor team, and so I would anticipate that we should be scoring some points there in the outdoor meet that we didn't pick up indoors.
I feel like there's some momentum here with track and field as the Bobcats are heading to Shippensburg next weekend. We're already here, 2 weeks removed from CACs. How are you feeling about the state of your team, and what progress are you still looking to make in these final 2 weeks?
Well, practice becomes really key. We've been, blessed with some, once we finally got some nice weather in here, it has hung around, and in our sport that's extremely important, just for some consistency in training and everything. So we've been blessed with that, and we've been blessed with some nice weekends of competitions, which we always look as part of our training plan. Looks like we're going to have another good week this week of training, which becomes really crucial. I mean, this is the week where we've got to really start to put it all together, because next week we're, even this week competition-wise, we're backing off a little bit. We're not loading people up, but next week in particular is, let's make sure we're healthy, let's make sure we're rested, and let it rip then at CACs.
Hey, we're excited. Track and field keeps on rolling. Another win for the men. Women's taking third as a team. Dale Louie, thank you for joining me once again.
Thank you very much.
Next on the Bobcast, we've got women's lacrosse with head coach Hayley Whear. Women's lacrosse winners over Southern Virginia for their first CAC victory of the season this past Tuesday, 22-15 in that one. And then falling to St. Mary's on Senior Day, 18-8. And, Coach, we talk about how good the CAC is at the top. Your team finally gets the chance to play a week without taking on one of the top 10 teams in the country. How do you think your team really handled these two more manageable games?
I think that we played pretty well in both games. We were actually really pleased with how they turned out, and I think it was kind of that competition level is still there across the board, regardless if they're in the top 10 or not. But I think that for us to kind of get a little bit more of what we needed to work on was really helpful to have a week like that moving into this final week, and then with playoffs starting at the weekend. So
I want to start with Southern Virginia. The Bobcats scoring a season high in goals, season highs across the board, as a matter of fact, points, goals, assists, shots on goal, all of that. Lots of end-to-end work, lots of success in transition in unsettled situations, even if they're off turnovers, the draw control, whatever. What did you like from your team offensively, especially in that capacity against Southern Virginia?
I think we talk a lot about with our attack that are at this moment in the season and where we are this year, our defense is more of our weaker link in the entire field. And so our attack, we constantly harp on that if that's going to happen, our attack has to kind of step up and be the opposite so that the score is kind of balanced a little bit more. And so I think that that game was proven that our attack can do that very easily. I mean, we saw so many people that had different roles, and it wasn't just constantly one person kind of putting it in, which it's been in years past. I think we saw a lot of different movement up there with a lot of different players, and I think that was really exciting as we move kind of towards the end of the season. And what we can end on is that we really do have a lot of threats out there. It's just whether or not who shows up on what day. So for everyone to kind of show up that day, that was really exciting for us.
Yeah, you pretty much much took my next question there. Rolling offensively, Summer Cavey and Stephanie King, 8 points apiece, but then you've also got 3+ from Roscoe, Coleman, Biggers, and Morgan Cavey. Was this a day, and this was what the next question was, a day where you got that balanced output that you're looking for on a consistent basis?
Yes, I think that it is extremely difficult for people to constantly get 8 points. And so for Steph and Summer to do that, that was really impressive. But for everyone else to kind of show up, that's the more of the attack that we've talked about, and some more competition throughout the season, is that we really do kind of need that balance attack as we move forward. So it can't always be one person stepping up. It's got to be kind of everyone throughout moving off ball to be able to create those opportunities. And so that was really exciting for us to see.
Against Southern Virginia, the Bobcats led 15-7 late in the first half. SVU 5 straight goals to end the first half and get into the second half. So it's now a 15-12 game with just over 14 minutes left before FSU responds with a 6-goal spurt. Where did that energy come from and that response come from to Southern Virginia's run?
I think we talked a lot about that it was not exactly what the game plan was, and that there's a lot on the line when we play against CAC teams and where we kind of end up. And given there's only 7 teams now, we kind of threw out there, do we want to be in last place or do we not? And I think that they really responded by that and said, absolutely not, that's not where we belong, and kind of showed that we are a little bit better and can kind of hang in that middle of the pack. And I think that even though this year hasn't been exactly what we've all talked about, we do have a lot of talent out there, and I think that was a game that they decided they really wanted to show it.
The game kind of reminded me of Wesley a little bit last year, where Frostburg let the Wolverines back into the game rather than really putting them away in the second half. Is playing with a lead something that your team can improve upon?
Oh, absolutely. We struggled a ton with being in the lead. I think 3 games specifically come to mind this season that did not go our way, and we were in the lead the entire game. I think that is a problem that we've talked about, and it's just kind of moving forward and how we see ourselves and having that confidence and being able to play up. I think we are team is someone that likes a challenge, and if we're not getting one, then we tend to be able to create opportunities to give them one. And we have talked about that is not where we want to be, and that if some of that would have been switched the other way, that we would have had some different turnouts for the 3 games that I'm talking about. And I think that there's so much room to improve on that, to really be able to stay up and continue to stay up the entire game and then come out with that W.
Yeah, and let me guess, Susquehanna Center and Hope?
How'd you know?
There you go. St. Mary's shifting to Saturday. I was impressed with how your squad competed, especially in the draw control circle and in creating transition chances with your ride. What did you like out of those groups specifically?
The draw controls group I am continually impressed with. I mean, for Molly Biggers to be new at taking it this year and just really kind of owning it, I think that she has done a phenomenal job. I also think that to have just 3-4 players that play on our circle is a little difficult, and for them to be able to play the entire game and consistently still come up with a draw, being so tired as a midi, especially in those competitive games, I think that I give them so much credit to really who controls the draw most of the time is who controls the game, and that really has gone our way with the draw controls a lot. Moving forward on the ride, we've talked about that and harped on that a lot. We play in the zone ride on that game, and I think that it really was the first time that it kind of clicked of how the shift happens and how to be able to come up with those turnovers and then do something with it. I mean, that's 3 of those goals to be easily off that unsettled. That's exactly what we were looking for. It just kind of throws the defense off a little bit. So I was really impressed that they kind of decided to show up with that and really move the ball quickly and be able to create an opportunity off of it.
And that's against the St. Mary's team that knows how to clear and has the stick skills to clear competently. Are you happy to build that kind of confidence against a real legitimate, St. Mary's is a solid squad?
Oh, 100%. And I think that that's the part that we need them to see. And I'm not quite sure if our team really gets it yet of how good that really is. But we're going to show them some film and some clips, and kind of hopefully that will just, the more that we kind of harp on how positive that experience is and how much we need that, I think that hopefully going into this next week, we can continue to help with that.
On the defensive end, St. Mary's was challenging to deal with. They did a lot of work from below goal line extended, looking for cutters, being very patient. How hard is it to deal with that kind of offensive approach?
I mean, our defense has struggled all year. We're really young back there, and the kind of lack of leadership is really, it's hard. And so I think that there is a lot of talent. I just think that they all still kind of are a little bit individual and don't really know how to put that together. So the fact that St. Mary's runs a cluster to kind of come off of with off-ball movement and cutters, I think that our team got very sucked into watching and forgetting where the ball was. And then when you play a cluster, you're supposed to play kind of a zone to take them off instead of playing man-to-man. And I think that switch just threw us off a little bit. I mean, it's a lot of quick footwork. It's a lot of little movements. And if they catch you flat-footed, it's prime time. And their stick skills are just so good that it didn't matter if we were right on their back or not. I mean, you'd have to be stick to stick to really stop some of their goals.
And finally, we talked after the game about her, but Summer gave you a big second half. You know, Frostburg struggled in the settled 7-on-7 in the first half. How did she really spark your team and get things going offensively?
I mean, if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. Summer is such a workhorse for us, and she just really does keep going. And sometimes her momentum can't stop, and she just plows through. Sometimes it works for her, sometimes it doesn't. But you can't be mad at her because she's trying. And I think that she really does just kind of want to help our team as much as possible, and she means really well when she does it. And sometimes, like I said, it really works out in our favor. And the second half, it really did.
Finally, this week at Mary Washington and then the CAC tournament itself, Frostburg is the 6th seed. Will take on either Mary Washington or St. Mary's. Mary Washington hosting Frostburg. St. Mary's is at Salisbury. Potentially seeing Mary Washington twice this week, as if Salisbury beats St. Mary's, it will be Mary Washington on Saturday. How do you think your young team will react to playing a CAC tournament game and potentially playing a team twice in a week?
This happened to us 2 years ago. The same thing. We finished with Mary Wash and then went back to Mary Wash. And the first game we kind of played how we normally play, and it was what it was, and it wasn't the prettiest. But the good thing was that we were able to watch our film on it and really learn exactly what we needed to do. And so when we went to play that playoff game, we did such a better job. We were tied or winning by 1 at halftime, and that just is unheard of for us. So I think that being able to kind of push against, sometimes it really is helpful to have the same team back to back, because you kind of get that little grit and that little kind of fire under you of, if they beat us once, we're not going to let it happen again. And I'm hoping that that happens. I mean, I'd love to beat them the first time, but we really are kind of obviously knowing where we are and kind of working with what we have so far in our injury list. I think that we have been a little bit more sensible of, we need to be a little bit more on our game plan, and being able to watch film and kind of develop that after we've played them is going to be really helpful.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Women's lacrosse on the road on Wednesday, CAC tournament on Saturday. Head coach Hayley Whear, thank you for joining me once again.
Thank you.
Next on the Bobcast, we have men's lacrosse here with head coach Steve Gartelman. It's a split week for men's lacrosse, as they were winners at Southern Virginia 21-16, losers at St. Mary's 13-5. Men's lacrosse at CAC weekend already. Men's lacrosse will be on the road in the CAC tournament, either at St. Mary's or at Christopher Newport, depending on Wednesday's result. And Coach will start here. Looking back on last week, you get the high of 21 goals against Southern Virginia and then a season-low 5 goals at St. Mary's. What was the difference between the two performances from your perspective?
Yeah, I just thought overall, tempo and speed of play, where in the St. Mary's game we controlled it when we wanted to run. We were being decisive. We had 6, 7, 8, 10, 11 guys playing the same style, the same mindset. And the things were clicking. Balls were going to our stick. Passes were sharp. Guys were fast. We were instinctual. We were decisive. And just a lot of energy. The guys were really excited on the bench for every little thing. There was a lot of positive, good energy, a lot of positive conversations where we made some good halftime adjustments, and we had our face-off guys score 3 points themselves with the halftime adjustments we made. So it's really nice to see that we can talk to the guys in those moments and have them come out and execute, because that's all we get to do as coaches, is ask for some plans, ask for some adjustments, and then the guys still have to go out there and make some plays. So we wrinkled it up a little bit, and it was really good to see the energy and the positivity in that game and the tempo. That's what we really want to live in.
Yeah, speaking about the Southern Virginia matchup, 12 different players scored a goal in that game. Rupert and Ward, of course, leading the way. And then you, as you mentioned, your face-off team is able to score. You get a goal from a pole in the fourth quarter. What can you say about the variety of ways and personnel that your team was able to use to score in that game?
Bobcat lacrosse, that's what we've been trying to preach for a long time now, is getting these guys out and running. Greg Giles scored on an assist from Nick Mattis, 2 poles, running transition on a man-down set in the fourth quarter. And that's what we want to do, is be multiple and be smart in the ways we take our risks. They're not necessarily our best offensive threats, those two guys, but they're offensive threats. They have to make sure that they pick those spots. Nick made a great play, coming up with a ground ball. He ran, drew a man, threw to Greg. nobody came to Greg, so he shot a great shot low, which was a scout. And guys just making the smart plays there, not trying to force anything. There's time and place where Greg needs to pull that away and pass to somebody and sub off, but that was the right time to make the right run. And seeing those guys do it and the face-off guys do it, it's great for those guys who are gritty, grinded-out guys to go get their moment also and their kind of time to shine.
It was a big moment in that game, fourth quarter, able to really push Frostburg ahead. The Bobcats built a second-half lead of 9 goals. SVU went on a little run to get back within 5 with over 10 minutes to go. How composed was your squad, and how was the team eventually able to put the game out of reach?
Yeah, there was definitely no doubt that we had that game in our control, and we had to make sure we didn't let it slip out of our control. There was that little run that went on because they are a very talented team. 32 and 16 on their squad are electric offensive players, some really good players all across the field for them. But that was it, just kind of make sure that this guy's a lefty, take that away from some things that we kind of forgot about and some of our scout things, our scout keys. And those things needed to come back in that run. Once we got those things back and the guys settled down, it was like, oh, yeah, this is what we remember how to do in those first 2 quarters. So it was really good just to see, like you said, there was good composure, everybody was with it, and all we remembered was the little things that got us to that moment when they went on that run, playing some details on the offensive end, fundamentally on the defensive end, and it went our way at the very end because that was a good offensive team, SVU.
You already mentioned this today, and when we've talked throughout the season, the term being multiple. Was Wednesday another example of being adaptable to styles of play and finding ways to win games when it calls to score 21 goals in a game where the other team scores 16? We haven't seen too many of those this year. Was that just another example?
Yeah, certainly is. Certainly is. That's one where we always talk about where we want to control the tempo and not let the tempo control us. And sometimes when you play another team that likes to play that style, it's impossible to control the tempo because both teams are pushing, both teams are running. And it was good to see that we could maintain, through some runs and through 4 quarters of that style. But it's not there every day. Some days it's not there. We have to make those decisions. But on that day it was there, and it was really good to see that we can maintain some 4-quarter speed through, people hitting us a little bit with some speed. So it was really fun.
Well, I'll shift gears to St. Mary's here over the weekend. A really kind of an uncharacteristic performance from this team. FSU fell behind 5-1 in the first quarter, outscored 6-0 in the third quarter. What made life difficult for your team at St. Mary's?
St. Mary's came with so much energy. It was their senior day, and they honored their seniors and came out to play ball for those guys, and they seemed really, really fired up from the first whistle. And our guys didn't have as much energy that day, and sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, as we just said. And it was a game where when we were out in SVU, it was kind of like heads of the coin. We were out there flying around, and when we came back on Saturday, it was tails of the coin where nobody had the speed, nobody had the juice, nobody had the energy, and it just kind of felt a little off, as you said, uncharacteristic, felt a little off, and it was tough because all of our guys are out there trying hard, but not in the same identity that we've been, working in, and that's what it was. It felt like we had, kind of a destructurized, team out there where a few guys are trying to do this, a couple guys are doing that, just for miscommunication or misidentification on how to use the emotions of being behind a little bit. So that's where I think the difference was, where we just didn't stay together. We didn't play, as we said before, Bobcats lacrosse. We had no speed, we had no tempo, we had no energy.
We've seen Frostburg against other CAC teams offensively. Salisbury, their face-off group really controlled the game. CNU, the turnovers really cost Frostburg. What made life difficult, specifically in the offensive third of the field?
Yeah, it was a couple of the unforced errors in shot selection, which more or less are unforced errors, where we were getting some good looks and just not shooting the ball as hard as we normally do, kind of maybe aiming or thinking about our shot selection. We wanted to shoot in a specific area in this goalie. We didn't quite get it to the areas that we wanted, and he played well. He made the saves he was supposed to make. We shot where we didn't want to, and he made those saves. And then when we started putting them late in the game and in the spots that we did want to hit, he was already in rhythm. He had some flow, so he played a really good game. But I think that was it, where some uncharacteristic, unforced errors where the ball just sails out of our stick a few times, making the defense play, extra defense. And then when we did get that great shot, opportunity, we didn't buzz the tower. We didn't, shoot a great shot. And it's kind of like a deflating moment where, like, here it is. You're down so many goals, and you're like, this one's going to break the ice. And then it just doesn't. It kind of deflated us. And we didn't ride those moments really well. We didn't brace those tough moments and come out of those hungry on the back, and we come out of those a little deflated. So that's kind of what happened, in my opinion.
Reminds me, after the Salisbury game, where you were happy that your team stuck together. We're nearing the end of the road here with the tournament this Saturday. How do you think your team can respond from a day where it was just like that didn't look like Frostburg lacrosse at all?
Mm-hmm. It started right in the corner of the field after the game. With the coaching staff, we asked them to take a minute so we can talk in the corner. And there's no intensity in the talk. There's no pointing fingers in the talk. It was actually reflective. It was, hey, coach, the coaching staff, felt like we can be a little bit better for you, but you guys need to understand when we ask for things, we have to try things. And as we went through that conversation, it became very healthy where guys were like, I made a mistake here, guys, I could be better there, or we need to do this. And it became a dialogue of just guys realizing that we need to play for each other, some guys apologizing, some guys owning their mistakes. So it started right away. And these guys are not abandoning ship. These guys are not, thinking anything other than we still want to go out and win conference championship games and get ourselves into the deeper layers of the season. And it started right away. And it was good because the guys got to go away for Easter a little bit, take some time with the family, and that healing needed to start right away instead of going home and just having –
and stewing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Having some time to really think about it or not be able to get it out of the body, out of the brains. So I think that was important to start right there. It was very, very healthy. And the guys came in the morning lift today and were crushing it. We had a huge turnout for individuals this morning. So I think the guys are ready to go. The healing started. They're definitely on board. But, we know that, like you said, it just was uncharacteristic of us, and we have to find ways to be more consistent in how we want to play.
Finally, we're going into the end of the year. This is a fun time of the year. Mary Washington to figure out where Frostburg's going to end up in the tournament and then the tournament itself. Do you think this team's going to benefit when we get to Saturday, a chance to get another chance at a team that this team has lost to, whether it's St. Mary's or CNU?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd absolutely say so. This Mary Wash game is going to be great for us because it's a team that, has had our number in the past couple of years. The guys are fired up and motivated for it. So it'll be almost like a conference tournament atmosphere.
Sure.
So it'll be a really good fit, game for us to get going in there because I know Mary Wash is coming in to play a really good game, and they're going to try and give us their best. So we got to be ready for that. And seeing either of those two teams again, whichever way this game plays out against a tough Mary Wash team, is going to be great because we felt in both of those games we didn't play our best foot, put our best foot forward. We had, some opportunities in CNU. Clearly, like we talked in St. Mary's, opportunity was really just not quite us. And I think if we go out there and play more like the SVU game, more like the York game, more like some of the games that we've put together, the early season stuff, we were talking about rhythm and the tempo we had in that early season stuff. We could find that. It could be a really fun moment where we can upset somebody in the conference tournament and go on ourselves a little run. And postseason play is exactly that. It's a one-game season. Anything can happen. Win one game, you get more life. Win another game, you get more life, and that's what we got to do, survive and advance.
April 27th. We've been looking forward to it all year. Coach Steve Gartelman, thank you for joining me once again.
Thanks, Andy.
Next in the Bobcast, we have tennis with head coach Jeff Splinter. Both tennis teams wrapped up their conference regular season this past Saturday against York College of PA. The men also took on Bethany this past Friday. Both teams will be in the CAC tournament, the men taking on the University of Mary Washington coming up on Friday. The women are at Christopher Newport University on Saturday, so it's going to be a busy weekend here for Coach Splinter. Coach, we'll start here. How did Friday's match go for the men at Bethany? Shasta, Derek Thompson wins in singles. Thompson and Jeffrey Goldring wins in doubles. What'd you see?
Yeah, I think looking back on the match against Bethany, you talk to any one of our players, we think it was a little bit of a disappointment. We came into the match against Bethany thinking it was going to be a very close match, something that, we've been looking forward to. There are a couple matches we kind of had circled on the calendar, Penn State Harrisburg, Bethany, a couple of those other schools on there. But in the late stretch, those were the two schools that we really wanted to focus on and perform at our best. We got moved indoors because it was a really rainy day on Friday, and they have a pretty nice field house down in Bethany, which was great to play in. But a little bit tougher to see, a little bit tougher to play on with the bounce. So we came in ready to go, didn't make any excuses, but just didn't show up and play to the level we are capable of.
What'd you see out of the winners? Thompson and Goldring in doubles, Shasta and Thompson in singles.
Yeah, Derek actually broke his strings in warm-up, which may have helped him. He ended up using one of Justin's rackets, so a completely different feel for it. But against Harrisburg, he was hitting a little bit tentative, a little bit scared, and really focused on that all week with Derek, just hitting how he does in practice and hitting with confidence. And he really took that practice play and put it into his match play against Bethany, and something that he's been capable of all year. He just really put it together and played probably his best tennis I've ever seen him play here at Frostburg. So it was great to see him get a singles win and, really carry the momentum with the last couple matches that were on the court. Really got the team excited. So him and Jeff in doubles just looked really good. Started out a little tentative. They were down early, and then just really figured it out and just cruised from there. I think it was 3-all, and then just won the next 5 games super quickly, super easy, and played doubles the right way with putting balls away at the net and setting each other up.
Did you see a carryover from Thompson playing well against Bethany into the York match?
Absolutely, yeah. I think going against York, we had some tough matches. York's a pretty good team for the CAC, and finishing around the 4 or 5 seed, if I remember right. And it was a good test for the guys. Really, played well. I thought doubles-wise, we came out ready to play against York. And then Derek, especially, singles and doubles, played well. That he was playing in doubles one of their number 1 guys who is a serve and volleyer. It's just incredible hands. So they were up against the gun right away in doubles, and singles-wise, he had a 6-0, 6-1 result against York, but looking at the match and looking at the score was completely different. I thought he played really well, played the points really well, just wasn't able to capitalize on any of the break points or game points. You just kind of let it slip a little bit. But
I want to keep going with York. Shasta, week after week, is your number 1 singles player on the men's side. Gets to see the top players of the conference week after week. What can you say about his level of play here now that the conference regular season is over?
Yeah, I think for the first time in his 3 years that I've been here, consistency. It's the first year where we've really seen a consistent level of play, match in and match out. In past years, he's had matches where he kind of doesn't show up, maybe he doesn't play to his level of capability. This year, I feel like all the matches he was supposed to win, he won, and all the matches that maybe we thought he didn't have a chance in were really close. Against York, 7-5, 6-3 against their number 1 player, Ben. It was a close match. Every point, you had a lot of break chances, a lot of chances to win points. The guy was serving well over 100 miles an hour at some points in the match, and he's just really able to stay in the point, dictate how he wants to play the point with a little bit slower, a little bit less pace, and And looking back on previous matches against Mary Wash, against Christopher Newport, he's going against obviously some regionally ranked competition, and really able to stand up to that, and hopefully the CAC conference kind of noticed his level of play this year.
I want to switch over to the women's side. Women also taking on York on Saturday. What did you see for the Bobcats? Any extra juice with a little bit of senior day festivities, especially for the women with the top 2 singles players?
Yeah, absolutely. We had Kate and Jenna, who are graduating at the end of this year, who also play number 1 doubles and 1 and 2 singles. So they mean a lot to the Frostburg tennis program. I thought doubles-wise, they played really well together. They all week in practice, we kind of focused on moving forward and playing up the net together, and they really were able to do that in doubles. Just the other team was making a lot of really good shots. They're hitting a little bit harder than we're used to seeing. And we did have Kate and Jenna play against the guys this past week of practice, so they were a little bit used to the hitting hard, and wanted to make sure they were ready, because Rachel Wagner, who plays 1 singles for York, is a very good player in the conference. So hopefully that kind of got them a little bit ready. And looking at the score, 8-2 at 1 doubles was good, and was a really competitive match. And in singles, they both lost 6-0, 6-0, but they were two of the longer singles matches on the court. They may have lost 6-0, 6-0, but the points were long. We're playing points the way we want to be, and Jenna in particular had a lot of games go to deuce and just couldn't pull it out once it got there, but she was really setting herself up well, just couldn't finish it.
I think it's interesting that you've mentioned here with Thompson and with Paylor and Lipinski, little adjustments throughout the week. Do you have any kind of team-wide emphasis as we move into the CAC tournament this weekend for your squad?
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking for aggressive play. When we go, obviously, the men are going against the 1 seed in Mary Washington, and the women are going against the number 2 seed in Christopher Newport. And Christopher Newport and Mary Washington are very similar on the women's side. So we need to have a game plan, stick to it, and just play to our strengths right away, especially in doubles. In doubles, I feel like anything can happen. Anyone can win any certain match. So it's about controlling the middle of the net, really trying to volley, put away, take chances, and we know that they are really good hitters, and we can't get into long rallies with them. So it's about kind of whoever's at the net, cutting balls off, trying to get points ending early, and trying to go for our shots.
Tournament play, you're playing these teams for a second time. Do you expect to see the same exact matchups, flight for flight, from the regular season meeting for, Mary Washington on the men's side, seeing you on the women's side? And if you do get a second look at some of these matchups, singles and doubles wise, how does that help your team in terms of understanding what they're up against and in preparation?
Yeah, I think, going against them for a second time, a little less intimidation factor. Obviously I think our team looks at Mary Wash and Christopher Newport as in like that they're really good. And, after playing them the first time, I think we realized that, yes, they are really good, but there's not much difference from what they're doing to what we're doing. So it's about kind of controlling the rally, hitting a little bit deeper, and staying in the point, one more shot. That's what we've been kind of preaching in practice, is just one more ball in play. And if we can hit that one more ball, it really forces a lot on the other opponent to do more with the next one.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Frostburg State in the CAC tournament for the first time in a while here on the tennis side. Men at Mary Washington, women at CNU. A lot of driving this weekend coming up for you, Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for joining me this week.
Great, thanks.
Next on the Bobcast, we have softball with head coach Bill Vasko. And since last week, Frostburg has played CAC games with virtually half the conference. CAC tournament weekend has arrived, at least for the first pod. Frostburg is heading to Christopher Newport, where the Bobcats will play CNU on Friday at noon, and then Salisbury in the game immediately following. And to recap this last week, Bobcats swept Penn State Harrisburg on Thursday, split with York on Friday, and dropped 2 games to Salisbury here this past Monday. Coach, finally, you've had the chance to see and play against all the teams in the conference, and with 6 games in a 5-day span, from what you've seen, do you think that this team can be really competitive in a conference tournament environment?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's anybody in the conference that we fear. I think that we feel good about that we can compete with anybody in the conference. Going through this past week and playing 3 teams, our goal was to be playing our best softball during conference time. And here towards the end, I feel like we didn't always have the result we wanted in every game, but we were competitive every game. I feel like we're playing our best ball in all aspects. Our defense has really improved over the last couple of weeks. Our pitching has done what we needed to do, and we've had timely hits to score runs. It's just unfortunate in a game against York, and then yesterday there's a couple of situations that put us in bad spots that we weren't able to recover from. So, but feeling good about where we're playing at right now, and 2 non-conference games to finish up tomorrow that are still important, that we want to finish our homestand well, and then give it our best shot then once we get to the conference tournament.
Coach, we've talked all year about the weather. At this point in the year, late April, we're 30 games in. We finally got some nice weather these last 2 weeks to potentially practice outside. You've mentioned the fielding improvements. What sticks out in my mind is you telling me earlier in the year it's hard to practice tracking fly balls, and Hanlon had a couple of really nice catches in center field against Salisbury. Overall, what improvements have you seen, especially in those areas that we identified early in the year, defensively and pitching, that you've seen as we've gotten to the end of the season?
Yeah, like you said, just being able to get out on the field and, it's not just the defensive practice, but when you're getting reps outside and during BP and everything, just seeing as many balls as possible that gives you advantage on first steps and getting to positions to allow yourself to field the ball, and, being more comfortable just fielding ground balls on the dirt and making throws, and just the consistency. And then playing on a regular basis as well, where you're not playing 2 games and then sitting for a week, figuring out when you're going to play again. That's important as well. I think the playing opportunities are just as important or more important than the practice time, because now you're in the flow of a game and you're getting those live game reps, which helps out a lot as well. In terms of the pitching, I think the pitchers have done a great job the last couple of weeks. Our ERAs come way down. We're doing a better job of, when we do make mistakes on defense, bouncing right back and giving ourselves an opportunity to complete an inning and not allowing those mistakes to beat us. So I've been really happy with the way that the pitchers have competed and kept us in games and given us opportunity to win.
I want to touch on the pitching and pitching that you'll see around the conference. This past week, Frostburg has seen 3 of the top pitchers in the conference in terms of innings pitched, ERA. Penn State Harrisburg's Allison Hartman. Bobcats beat her in a 1-0 game. York has Ginger Lewis. You split with her. Salisbury's Shannon Powell. You go into extra innings against her. 2-2 in 4 games against those pitchers. All 4 games, as I mentioned, were tight. Are those encouraging signs that your team is in these games, winning some of these games against the top pitchers the conference has to offer?
Yeah, I think the big part when you look at all of those games is maybe they were, we didn't really jump out and hit the ball well in the early innings, but then we made adjustments and figured out ways to put a lot of hits on the board and score runs when we needed to. Maybe we're not scoring as many runs as we need to. I think we're leaving a lot of players on base throughout innings where we can be picking up a few more runs. But the best part of it, I think, is that we continue to chip away at things and figure out what the pitcher's doing and make those adjustments that if you look as the game progresses, I think we're doing a better job. And, maybe we only have 1 or 2 hits in the early stages of the game, and then you look up, we have 8 to 10 hits. So we're doing what we need throughout the game to keep figuring things out and putting some runs across the plate.
Do you feel like that you've found the combination or the lineup that really maximizes, especially your hitting? We've been seeing a lot more of Keene at catcher, getting Ramey in the infield. It means McCarty and Merling can both hit. Is that iteration, Keene at catcher, really been the most successful, way to utilize your bats?
Yeah, I just think, trying to find the right combination defensively and offensively to, give our hitters the best opportunity, but also, making the changes where, I think those changes have directly affected, what we've done defensively as well. I mean, obviously, the practice time and the playing time to keep getting reps to get better, but, just making those changes not only, offensively to get all the bats in the lineup as possible, but also to shore up the defensive issues that we'd had a little bit. I think that those changes have helped a lot, and, we'll just keep working to put the best lineup out there every game that we can that we feel gives us the best matchup against each team that we're facing.
I want to touch on Salisbury since it's so fresh. Played yesterday on Monday. Game 1, you get Caitlin Merling going the distance head-to-head with one of the top pitchers in the CAC, and then you also get big production from the bottom of your lineup. 7 through 9 batters, each have 2 hits. The big home run, of course, is Cat Treff in the bottom of the 7th. When you get pitching like that and production from that part of your lineup, is it accurate to say that your team can be in any game with really any opponent in this conference?
Yeah, I mean, and Salisbury's been one of the top teams in the conference for years, and I was really happy with the way we competed in both games yesterday. We had one bad inning in that second game on defense where we gave up a lot of runs, but otherwise we competed well. We bounced back, and like you said, we had people throughout the lineup step up in key situations to keep bouncing back every time we got down. It was just unfortunate it didn't swing our way in a couple of situations where we had the opportunities to finish it off and get the win. So, I'm really pleased with where we're at, and like I said earlier, that I don't think we fear anybody. That we feel like if we play our best game in all phases of the game, that we can go out and snag some wins this weekend. But again, focus on is tomorrow, finishing up our regular season with trying to find a way to get 2 wins against Catholic.
Finally, yes, as you mentioned, Catholic, and then this weekend. What are you looking for against Catholic specifically, and what can your team do to put itself in position to get to Saturday and play elimination games?
Again, we would just want to come out tomorrow, play our best game in all phases, compete and leave it all out there one last time on the home field and finish off the season on a strong note. which will hopefully propel us into this weekend. And, we've talked about just playing one pitch at a time, and that's what we're going to do tomorrow, and do whatever we can. And then once that finishes up, then we'll take a look a little bit more at conference tournament and figure out what we need to do, go back through the notes. Now we're familiar with the opponents and what they're going to attempt to do, and just, put together a game plan to try to get through Saturday with, whatever we feel the best lineups are. But, like I said, right now, tomorrow is our focus to try to finish off the season on a good note here and then propel us into this weekend. And I think, we'll have a good day tomorrow.
We're looking forward to it. The regular season finale at Bobcats softball field on Wednesday, the conference tournament this weekend. Coach Bill Vasko, thank you for joining me once again.
All right, thank you.
Back for a Tuesday edition of the Bobcast. We're here with baseball head coach Guy Robertson, and for the Bobcats, just 2 games in this past week, both games during the week. A loss at home to the University of Mary Washington last Wednesday, and then a loss at home to York this past Monday here. Frostburg sitting on just 1 conference win. However, Bobcats are still just 3 games back in the win column of both Southern Virginia and Mary Washington. The avenue is there for taking Southern Virginia's spot in the top 6, but for that to happen, Frostburg needs to put itself in position against a good Penn State Harrisburg team this weekend. And Coach, we know the math. We all see the standings. We know it's in a dire position at this point. And really, unless you're a top 2 seed, it doesn't matter where you get in, how you get in. Does your team understand that they're not out of it yet?
I don't really know if they do or they don't. I mean, obviously, if they're doing the math, they can look and see that there is a way to get there. However, I think you got to put yourself in a position to feel like, okay, we can accomplish that over the next 2 series by finding out a way to put together a full 9 innings of baseball that, we only allow, the other team 27 outs, and that we take advantage of situations and that we pitch the baseball better. It's hard to look up every time you turn around and you're down right out of the chute, whether that's an earned run or unearned run. It doesn't matter. They go hand in hand. They all count the same on the scoreboard. And, trying to play from behind. And I think that the guys, have a mindset of that, we're constantly digging ourselves out of a hole, and we haven't been very successful at that of late. This has been hard. I think it's a different thing that a lot of guys are not used to. Certainly a situation that we find ourselves in that the program's not used to. And it's just a matter of, at this point, it's an individual battle of how you can persevere through, hard, difficult times and try to find a way to put the past, exactly there and move forward and figure out how we can try to get better. It's never too late to get better. And that starts tomorrow against W&J. And we just got to figure out how we can get some combined, whether it's 1 guy, 2, 3 guys, multiple innings where we're putting up zeros. And, you look up at the scoreboard again yesterday in the 4th, 5th, and 6th inning, and it's like a 9-spot combined or something like that. And we're just not able to, minimize damage and or come back and put up a 0. It seems like there's just a snowball effect that's going on, and we just haven't been able to put a stop to it. Guys are trying to play through some pain and injuries, and guys are trying to pitch through that, and it's just a matter of trying to pick one another up and trying to find a way to get it done. And it's just been an uphill battle so far.
Last week, Mary Washington, 20 hits in the game, 7 for extra bases. York on Monday, 16 hits, 6 for extra bases. It's compounded with 5 errors. You've touched on this before, and with what you just said. How can Frostburg put together 9 innings where the team gives itself an opportunity to be in and win baseball games? It's hard to feel like we have an opportunity to win this game, once you give up 9 runs in a span of a few innings. So how can, especially I want to get to the pitching staff, give this team a chance?
Well, it starts there, and I think that if you look at a lot of these early innings and if you're running your best guy out there to start a game, or the guy that you think gives you the best opportunity to start a game and get going early and get some momentum, it seems like every batter, we're 3-2 almost to every hitter that we face, and it's a 50-50 proposition whether that guy gets out or not. It seems less than that right now, but I know it's not. And there's constantly guys on base, which puts pressure on your defense, and it's just hard. And again, they go hand in hand. The pitching and defense, they got to help each other. I mean, we've talked about it since the beginning. The guys know it. We don't strike out people, so balls get put in play, and plays got to get made. And if there's an opportunity to turn a double play, you got to get it done. And we just one hasn't affected the other in a positive way enough. And so the pitch count goes up, and I think Chase was at 90 pitches when he came out of the ball game after 4 innings. I mean, that's 7 innings worth of work for guys that are pitching efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not getting enough outs early in counts, in 3 pitches or less, which is ideal. And we're not making enough plays to try to offset some of those inefficient pitching situations that we have. So it's just been hard, and so we got to figure out how to get deeper into ball games with some of our better guys early in games, and we got to make sure that we're engaged in a competitive situation where we feel like we have a chance offensively to either come from behind or we're right there a hit or 2 away like we were at St. Mary's, and there was plenty of opportunities there, a week and a half ago now, where we just weren't able to capitalize on some situations where some guys really made some great plays in that Sunday game that I'm thinking back to, but the game's been played for a long, long time, and everybody wants to talk about launch angle and how far we can hit the baseball and how many home runs that we hit. At the end of the day, if you don't stop the other team from scoring and it seems like we're hemorrhaging runs, somebody's got to put a stop to it. Somebody's got to stitch up the cut, and we got to be able to handle our business. And if that doesn't happen, then we're going to continue down the same path that we are. There's guys out there who can make plays. There's guys out there who can pitch the baseball. There's guys that we have that are capable of getting it done. Got to put ourselves in a better mindset going into the game and want to be the guy that puts a stop to it and want the baseball, whether it's on the mound or want the baseball hit to you defensively, and just know that I'm going to make a play and I'm going to get it done, and that's going to give us some positive vibes and keep the momentum or give us momentum. And I think maybe that's the biggest thing. Anytime we get momentum, we're having a hard time gaining momentum, but if we get it, it seems like we give it right back the very next half inning. Like if we take a lead or we put up runs, we're having a hard time coming back, putting up a 0. The other team's just scoring and at times scoring more than we put up. So it's been hard. I mean, everything that you could possibly think of that you would want for your club, moving forward positively, we've had to have a hard time finding it. And but there's 6 games left, seven games left. And we got to go out and, no more time than now, find a way to get it done.
How can your guys, especially this week, we've gotten some nice weather early in the week this week. What's the focus this week in practice? How can your guys prepare to make those momentum plays? And what is the focus in your conversation with the guys as a group or individually?
Well, I think that, yesterday at the end of the game, we were talking about trying to put together 27 outs of good competitive baseball where we don't allow the other team more than that, and we put pressure on the other team in order to maybe we gain a few outs or even utilize the outs that we have more effectively. You see these situations where these teams are giving you an out and they're laying down a sacrifice bunt and we're not making a play or it turns into a hit, where that's a 1-out swing in their direction that they were giving us an out that we didn't get, and now it's an extra base runner. So those types of things, you got to minimize those little things, and we have a chance to get a routine ground ball for an out that turns into an error because we bobble the ball 3 times at second base. And now it ends up being first and second and nobody out instead of man on second and 1 out. It just changes the complexion of everything and the feeling of, you just have, I think, this defeated attitude or feel to things, not maybe an attitude. And, those are just plays that have to be made. And if we get a few more of those, I think it just settles and calms the waters. And we need calming innings in order to feel like, okay, we're headed back in the right direction where we were 6 weeks ago, where it seemed like we couldn't do anything wrong. And now it seems like we can't do anything right. That's not baseball. Those extremes aren't baseball. So we got to find just that consistency and, get some positive momentum for, consecutive innings going forward.
Finally, W&J Wednesday, the Harrisburg Series, a big one this weekend. how important is it to get off to a good start in terms of those calming innings, putting some together against a good program in W&J, and then in game one come Friday?
Huge, and I think that we have to figure out a combination of getting some guys work because we've only had a couple games since the St. Mary's series, so getting guys work and get back into the swing of things tomorrow, and how do we not allow that to overwhelm us for 3 games in a row over the weekend. So I think that there's that piece there where we got to figure out, all right, how do we get – I got to get guys in the mindset of just get me 3 outs. Go out and get me 3 outs on the mound. And if that takes 9 guys to do it, then it takes 9 guys to do it. But just go out and do your job for 3 outs tomorrow, and then we'll figure out if we need you for 4, 5, or 6 outs. And the guys that are out there playing defensively have got to know, hey, I got to focus for 3 outs. And then I can set it down for a little bit. And then I got to focus for 3 outs and go do my job offensively. But the offensive piece will come. That's baseball. You know, that thing kind of comes and goes. The hitting is not what I'm concerned about. So I just think that we got to get in our mindset that I got to go out and do my job, and I can't put too much pressure on myself because there's a fine line of I'm only going to pitch for an inning and I put too much pressure on myself. Or I'm only pitching for 2 innings, I put too much pressure on myself, and then I'm not – I tense up or I grip the baseball too tight and I'm not able to do what naturally happens for me. So there's a fine line there, which we're tiptoeing. But, look, that's, I think, where it starts is we got to go out and figure out, I got to just do my job for 3 outs and then, set it down for a little bit. And then if I'm asked to go get 3 more outs, go get it done.
Well, it comes down to these final 2 weeks. We'll see. Frostburg State baseball, still a chance to put itself in position to be in the tournament. Coach Guy Robertson, thank you for joining me once again.